This video is sponsored by my favorite website creator, Squarespace, the best place to go when you want to get a domain or create a beautiful website or an online store. I know you're out there, you ridiculously, incredibly, stupidly sensitive people, and oh dear, am I one myself. I sure am. Even if you aren't a ridiculously sensitive person, I can almost guarantee that you have those specific moments where your sensitivity levels sort of reach a dangerous high, like when PMSing or, stressed about things, or when you're just like having one of those days, you know the ones. So I've lived on this earth as an extreme sensitivo for long enough to know what will feel nice to my sensitive nerves, and I've learned the hard way just what to stay away from. So let's see if you agree with me on this list of do's and don'ts, or if you have completely different ones. Should we start with the don'ts? Okay. First of all, one thing that never leads to anything good is whenever I overschedule. You know how it is. You have those periods where there's a lot that you want to do or feel like you should say yes to, like work things or destination weddings or seeing old friends or traveling or taking on too many projects. Whatever it is, I find that it's just easy to say yes because you in the moment feel like lovely and happy and excited about life that day without taking in what you might feel like on the actual day after, being out 3 nights in a row. Not calculating cushion time to decompress and process my experiences is my biggest flaw, and it also has the hugest impact on how overwhelmed and frazzled I get. I've stopped reading or watching any type of news. I can't do it. The world is horrible. There is so much happening that is truly soul-shattering, and the newspapers and the Twitter people and the podcasts or whatever, they often, not always, but often sensationalize these tragic events to sell more issues or get more views. I feel like a lot of people are addicted to news, and I don't know how that leaves you as a person, how you feel after non-stop consuming the world's tragic news. I rely on David to tell me what happens in the world because he stays on top of news, but he doesn't sensationalize, and when he tells me stuff, there are no photos or videos that I have to see. So I want to know what's going on in the world, of course, but I don't want it to be burned onto my retinas. I'm not strong enough to handle that. Here's an important one. You know those relationships where you meet the person and afterwards you always feel drained and uneasy and worse about yourself? Why do we keep such relationships? It sounds like a very bad idea for everyone, but especially if you're a sensitive person on top. I know I don't keep company like that. To get to spend time with me, you have to be lovely and delightful and generous and kind. This I'm quite strict with. Life is too short. So it's no news that I love my champagne and my cremant, and even a glass of Prosecco in a pinch. But I do feel that alcohol is risky business for us sensitivias, because lovely as that champagne is in the moment, as unlovely it is the day after. The chemical imbalance from a hangover, and even a tiny hangover when you haven't even been drinking much, it makes at least me much more sensitive the day after than I would be on a normal day. David and I sometimes do a dry month without drinking, and one time, this was years ago, I did almost a whole year without drinking. I think it was 10 months or so. Anyway, I definitely understand people, and especially sensitive people, who cut the drinks completely. But personally, I don't want to. I think it's because I don't like sweet things, and I'm not particularly intrigued by rich foods. So for me, when I want to treat myself, my one special delight will always be a glass of bubbles. But since I'm well aware of alcohol being risky and having this negative aspect, I keep that in mind, and if I know I'm going to have a night out, I try to make sure that the day after will be a day where I don't demand too much of myself, and especially that I don't have to be social. What about you? Have you ever tried to stay away from alcohol for a period? What was your experience of it? Whenever I talk about this next point, I always get such a huge reaction from you. It seems like I'm definitely not the only one who, for the sake of my own sanity, needs to stay away from violence and cynicism, and particularly those two in combination. When I talked about trying to stay away from violence in my This Needs to Be Said video I posted just before Christmas, I was so touched and so saddened and moved to read your comments on that video. I wonder if I being as sensitive as I am, had like grown up in a violent household or a violent society, what I would be like today. So yes, I am trying to consciously stay away from consuming violence, and above all, violence as entertainment. Also, I only read literary fiction and classics, and oh man, a lot of literary fiction and a lot of classics has quite a lot of cynicism and cruelty in them. It's not that I don't want to read about life's sad or tragic or cruel sides, but what I want is for the author or filmmaker to treat it with compassion, not with cynicism or going for like shock value, you know? Now then, what about the do's? After hearing me go on about the don'ts, you might think that I consider being sensitive to be some kind of condition that you have to sort of manage and that will like make your life just awful. But that's just so not it. Actually, I consider being sensitive as a really powerful thing, and if I had the option, I would never ever change my personality to anything else. Like, I see my sensitivity as a huge part of my creative work. Like, I've taken my affinity for mood and my non-stop reading of atmosphere, and I've created a career out of it. Of course, I'm not like saying that you can't be creative and artistic and all that if you have another type of personality. I'm just saying that for me, one of my most useful skills when writing or taking photos or whatever it is that I know mood. I'm sure that whatever your specific personality is, there will be something like that that's like highly useful to you creatively or career-wise. But for me, this is it. Being like constantly aware of atmospheres, both like socially and aesthetically. So the most important do for me is just that, not only accepting my sensitivity, but appreciating it and using it, having fun with it, you know? I think that society or whatever teaches us really young that there is this like one hyper narrow cookie cutter personality to be considered normal. Listen, I have never once felt the urge to visit a music festival or go backpacking, and never have I even considered doing either of those things. I will not go bungee jumping any day soon. My type of adventure is just a different kind. There are so many different kinds of personalities, and I, for one, is perfectly happy with mine. One habit of mine, which is just delightful and a very big game changer for me, is to remember to have a non-social day after every social day. This has to do with the overscheduling that I mentioned earlier, to like plan for a cushion day to process a social event before the next social event. This isn't always possible, of course, but I really try because I have noticed just how huge of a difference it makes on my like frazzledness. Particularly if I'm having a hectic period, I'm trying now to like have a lot of silence around me. I don't mean actual silence, to be honest. I very rarely go without having music on. But what I mean with silence is actually no talking. Like to not consume ideas or voices or opinions like podcasts or films or even music with lyrics. So if I go on a walk without David, or when I'm cooking or doing my exercises or whatever, I don't listen to an audiobook or a podcast anymore. I just listen to instrumental music, because what I'm after is for my brain to start wandering without distraction. I've noticed that when I have those like quiet moments where I let my brain like do its own thing, that's when I process stuff and like life in general. So when I don't give myself time like this, I don't have any time when my brain sort of categorizes and sorts and archives my experiences or impressions or feelings. Have you noticed this as well? That like coming out of a hectic period, you need this kind of brain wandering to sort of reset to normal. So I've been vegan for 16 years now, and I think it's one of the 4 best decisions that I've ever made. It's like my identity now, a huge part of my character, that I'm making like a daily choice not to consume animal products. It's just such a tangible and constant thing they do to be like a kinder person, and it makes me feel more like all harmonious and things. But of course, I'm not pretending that I'm perfect. There are so many aspects of my life where I could be more ethical and a kinder person. But I'm just feeling like when it comes to this, it's such a huge and like obvious lifestyle choice that it makes me feel like I'm living in a way that fits my sensitivity and like my mild personhood. It's good. It's a sweet feeling. The absolute best thing for a sensitive person though, the one thing that makes life that much more precious and easy and calm, is of course to have a David. David is a funny one in this conversation because he's also sensitive in every way, but not to the extent I am. What I mean is that I don't think that his sensitivity and my sensitivity are the same type. Like, he's extremely compassionate, but he doesn't have my like nervous energy around it, and he's not at all like easily overwhelmed by many new impressions like I can be. It's just like nice to have someone who's very kind but also very stable around you when you're a bit of an overthinker and like an alert type of person. Honestly, sometimes David feels like my human shield, like he's just like constantly placing himself between me and all the, stressful aspects of simply being alive. I hope that every one of you Sensilitos watching this has a David or like a tender-hearted person who knows to like sometimes protect you a bit when the world feels too harsh. I think if we don't have anyone around us who understands us and the way we are, the risk is that we try to change our personality and like toughen up to better be able to handle life ourselves. But that's a shame. Like, we shouldn't toughen up because it would mean losing some of the best aspects, like our own most unique like sensibility. We're not made to be tough. We're made to be the exact opposite, to stay soft. Even after decades of being alive in this world and definitely being like kicked around by life now and then, I am very determined to not get jaded or cynical. It's the opposite. I'm working very hard at staying soft and not letting the world change me into, a world-weary hard knuckle. I'm born a gentle girl, and I will try my utmost to stay a gentle woman till the day that I die, a few centuries from now. Doesn't that sound nice? But what did I miss? Any do's and don'ts that I didn't bring up that you try? Or if you're not a particularly sensitive person, how does all this sound to you? Is it very weird? Even if it does sound quite weird, in case you do have a sensitive person in your life, remember to treat them sweetly. And remember to give me a little like and click subscribe if you haven't yet. That would also be very sweet of you. Now, do you want to create a beautiful site or maybe start your own blog? If so, you should definitely do it with Squarespace. Listen to this, with Fluid Engine, a next generation website design system, it's never been easy for you to unleash your creativity. So you start with an incredible template and then you customize everything by simply dragging and dropping. It seriously couldn't be easier. Squarespace is also amazing with blogging tools to share your stories, photos and videos to make it easy to reach your audience. You can also auto-post your content to Twitter, Facebook or Tumblr, and they have great traffic analytics so that you can see how many people are visiting your site, how long they're staying for, where they're coming from and what they're interested in, like fashion or interior design or maybe books, for example. So what are you waiting for? Go get your free trial today at squarespace.com, and when you're ready to launch, go to squarespace.com/jennymustard to get 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. Thank you for watching today. Hope you get something out of this one and see you next week already, my loves. Okay, bye.